Welcome to the Verse Virtual March reading. It's hard to believe it's March already. This year is flying away already. Although in some ways it feels like it's creeping. In other ways it's flying. So it's March. And some say it's spring. In fact, we've got daylight savings starting today, and I had to get up for a 7 o'clock yoga class. That was fun. But it's great to see you here today and that you all made it at the right time. I'm very impressed. And today we've got two terrific features, Luke Johnson and Brian Vine. And we're going to start our reading with Luke. So let's see, let me find this bio. Luke Johnson is the author of Quiver from Texas Review Press, which was a finalist for the Kate Tufts Award, the Jake Adam York Award, the Vassar Miller Prize, and the Levis Award. A Slow Indwelling by Harbor Editions, and Distributary, also by Texas Review Press, 2025. Quiver was named one of 4 finalists for the 2024 California Book Award and was recently longlisted for the Kate Tufts Award. Johnson was selected by Patricia Smith as a finalist for the 2024 Robert Frost Residency through Dartmouth College. You can find more of his work at Tenyon Review, Prairie Schooner, and elsewhere. So take it away, Luke. And the rest of you, please mute yourself, and I will too.
Okay. Well, thank you, Robbi. We put this together. Can anyone hear me okay? Thumbs up. Okay, cool. I'm not super tech savvy, and I know that earbuds are not that tech savvy, but for me they are, and for whatever reason they weren't working. So I'm glad that I'm coming through clear. So thank you, Robbi, and it's a pleasure to read with Ryan. We're both pressmates, and I've loved Ryan's work for a long time. So um, I'm going to read kind of from both of my full lengths. I'll read a couple pieces from Quiver, and then I'll kind of intermingle them with work from the forthcoming, which is Distributary. It will be out this fall with Texas Review Press. Just not much to know about the work other than just reading it and listening to it, other than after I finished Quiver, I realized the speaker wasn't finished. Um, I thought it was going to be a one-off, and I realized that my second book was sort of in the same universe, so to speak. So all that to say, it was a big surprise to me when I realized it was a 3-book series. So Quiver is kind of like the second book in a trilogy, which is pretty cool. I'll begin with a poem that opens actually Distributary. It's called America, and it's a short lyric piece, kind of a kind of like an angry love poem to this place I call home. America, for you, my love, I swallow this knife. And if not this knife, a bushel of swallows who slap the hood while I pin the pedal, freehand, flooding the smog. But what of pillows with kept creases, the shoes left scattered, the socks, silent mothers? For you, an apple pie. For you, the bodies of boys, my body, anybody, anyone. A gown of goat necks and boats strung with bonnets, a violet sky, violet with rain. Forget me. I too have tasted spider silk and woven a home from shrapnel and sea glass, strut like a muscular god. For you, this foolish weather, the white noise, the willows, the winnowing fog. For you, this anguish, its pewter stench, 10,000 tongues, and the bombs who torch them. For you, their buried swell. Quiver deals with a shadow father, and it really wrestles a lot with various forms of masculinity. Um, and does so in a way that I don't think demonizes either the shadow father or the speaker, but does obviously set them up in sort of a charade. And so Numbers 14:18 is one of the earlier poems in the book. It's a scriptural reference. The title is The Sins of the Father Will Ripple Through the Third and the Fourth Generation. You'll hear that towards the end when it comes to that generational trauma that's threaded throughout the book. Numbers 14:18. I've never told you how my father tied a drunk man to a chair and snapped the first four fingers on his left hand, how the moon, sickle soaked in milk, hung center the window cracked from frantic birds, and how the man, his dad, howled like a stray in the hills the boys bragged of maiming. You might be wondering what happened to the fifth finger, his thumb, and whether it stayed straight or faced a similar form of fracture, but none of that matters. In the time it'd take to detail a thumb pried loose, I could move from the shed to the house, quarter mile north, where my Nana swirls thyme and soup and sways her hips. Stevie Wonder, John Prine. How could she dance when the dead crawl inside? How can she dance with a body branded, owned by a beast, a belt that blooms the tremors? Believe when I tell you the fifth finger was spared, that my father ran out of brandy, out of spite, stopped soothing with brass, sought light, and stepped out, deeply hidden, an animal praised for water, that he found in his search an oasis, and there lapped stars until shame, clotted, concealed, spread like mange and swallowed him. Sometimes that's all that it takes. One taste, one, for dead wind to enter and eat the insides of a boy, 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 of a boy. The second book, Distributary, the father, the shadow father's dead, and the speaker's beginning to kind of blossom out and think through um, some pining after some joy, but also there's a lot of poems that deal with cultural violence. Um, and this is one of those poems. It's May 24th, 2022, and it's essentially the title is The Day of the Uvalde Shooting. I guess the only thing you should know about this poem is that when I talk about Leonard Warren, I'm talking about the great opera singer who actually dropped dead of a heart attack in the metro during a concert. May 24th, 2022. Today the birds are gone in the grass. Can you see it? Smothers under summer's thumb and tumbles toward the street. Clocks consume the hours as my sons stack cards and scribble in silence, daughter under her bed. She too has heard the gunshots, dreamt of blood, bodies of friends gone rogue with static, and wonders why when jackals eat, they watch the wounded suffer. But what of light that lingers, slants against the rotted gate and freckles what the darkness won't, a web or muddied mitten. I boil water, turn salt and bone to broth and soup and slurp until my shirt's wet. My lover's quiet with her breasts exposed and covered in the news. She tells me of a mother who hopped a fence to pull her babies through an open window, of a father smashed into the ground despite his daughter's calls. So I play Leonard Warren, pace the yard, pray, sharpen the knives. Imagine the last note lifting as his heart imploded, the metro stilled in its sound. Maybe it wasn't his heart that gave out, but the burden of song built by sadness, every abject terror, a scream, one looped melody, the head of a horse and the buzzards who board it, a barely legible tongue. There's multiple characters throughout Quiver. One of those is Jacob, one of those is Jonah. Um, and it came to my knowledge quickly that they, these characters throughout the book, as the speaker kind of goes through boyhood, sort of like a collection of all my friends growing up into these singular characters. Most of the poems are obviously reimaginings or imaginings. This one's probably the most true to form. And it's called Like a Fish Gasping. Did I tell you a boy was walking home from school when a woman asked him if he'd like a cup of juice? Did I tell you Jonah heard his mother's voice and muted her concern? Did I tell you the woman grew angry, began to weep, threatened to follow him home? Did I tell you Jonah ran? Did I tell you she set her 3 dogs loose to harm him? Did I tell you Jonah found his home, but the back door was locked? Did I tell you Jonah ran? Did I tell you Jonah never said no, but he found her offer kind, and besides, she was an elderly woman anyway? Did I tell you the home was large with locked windows, no dogs? Did I tell you Jonah sat down, his brow was warm, he needed just a sip? Did I tell you he had more than a sip? Did I tell you as he drank, his body began to wobble, he fell, he dreamed of fish fondled by blades? Did I tell you he woke with bloody fingers? Did I tell you he was my friend, he loved fingers, he liked to suck fingers? Did I tell you Jonah ran? Did I tell you he woke with his pants undone and a broomstick up his... Did I tell you Jonah liked fingers? I offered my fingers, found pleasure, strange pleasure, felt shame. I silenced the Lord. Did I tell you I silenced the Lord? Did I tell you I woke with a sheet over my mouth and Jonah began to? Did I tell you I gasped like a fish out of waves? Did I tell you I swallowed? Did I tell you Jonah ran, never came home, his body a house without windows? Did I tell you Jonah ran? Did I tell you he put a gun to his head and did what the whispers wanted? Did I tell you it wasn't his fault? And just a couple more. To the therapist who says it's time to move on. I press my ear to earth to listen to flies cluster. Cradle crows the neighbor's son shoots and stuff their throats with night jars. I ripped a phone once from its cord and dug a hole so deep I could stand inside it, sing to my father in hell. Last night my lover let out Monk, that's Thelonious, in the autumn air and walked the woods with naked breasts, her hips still wide from birth. She let my lips traverse them tenderly, slur a line of spit like Morse code, and crown her head in moonflowers. When my son was born, he was soundless, like a horn in its red case, soundless. The build before orgasm, soundless. As a boy, I watched Dad gut a pig, slide his hand through his stomach, soundless. That night he fried the tongue in the hawk's fat and slurped its soft heart, soundless. I've tried so many ways to say goodbye. Hypnosis, late walks, water, God, shaped totems out of broken clock to coax his twisted shadow. My mentor tells me lines of lyrics, open doors the dead find pleasure in passing through. But no matter the door, there is always a shovel. And no matter the shovel, there is always a loss. And loss is a crater where the living reside. Yes, someone has to dig. And I'll end with a poem. It's actually one of the last poems in the forthcoming. In the book, there's like a collection of 3 or 4 poems that are titled with a nod to a particular poet who's really shaped me. This one's called Dagger with a nod to Philivene. You stand at the back door reading What Work Is, and want nothing but rain and solitude and the scarlet flowers falling like flamed daggers from the tulip trees. When your son comes running naked in his striped socks and starts to shake his skinny ass towards sky and yell what sounds like fuck over and over, fuck, which means duck, flock of them, weaving trees in fluid formation and clanging a sound so terrible you think of Wagner, the worst music ever invented. Lifting from the blown speakers of your daddy's Buick while he weeps and laughs and bangs his head against the glass until the grieving, the voice of his brother, fades inside the fractured light and leans into the river, where you'll float one day in a funeral suit and wait for rain to crack the clouds and consume your face. So holy a moment, your son has stopped to study the fear that floods your eyes and drapes his hand in yours, says, Daddy, come dance for the ducks. And you do. 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, bow. 4 step, 5 step, spin. Thank you.
Thank you for those powerful punches of poems this morning. Let me pull up my bios here. Our next reader, second feature, is Ryan Vine. He's the author of poetry collections The Cave, also from Texas Review Press, and To Keep Him Hidden, the Salmon Poetry 2018, winner of the Northeastern Minnesota Book Award, and 2 poetry chapbooks, Ward from Texas Review Press in 2021, and Distant Engines from Backwater Press 2006, for winner of a Weldon Keys Award. His poems have appeared or are forthcoming in the American Poetry Review, Plowshares, The Rumpus, Blackbird, Southern Review, Poetry Ireland Review, Poetry Daily, Verse Daily, and on National Public Radio's The Writer's Almanac. Take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Robbi, for putting this together. And thanks, Luke, for the invite. I'm a big fan of your poems. I'm excited to be pressmates again. And I'm looking forward to meet you in person, too. So, yeah. So I'll be reading from my new collection, which is set to come out, Texas Review Press, this fall, September. The title is The Cave, and it's hopelessly domestic. The poems are all about my kids, about home life. So it's a bit of a departure from my old work. My friend Connie Wannick, the great poet, she said that terror and beauty make good bedfellows in a poem. So I was thinking of the many ways in which, it's both terrifying and amazing every single day with children. So I'll read these poems, and they're all from the manuscript. I'll start with the first poem from the book and end with the last poem in the book. This is Tick Check. I try to catch each kid. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. Can y'all hear me all right? Is everything? Cool. Tick check. I try to catch each kid coming out of the shower. That way I don't feel like a prison guard ordering them to strip and spin. Arms above your head. Now grab your bits and lift. I once showed Leo and Eiley a photo of meth mouth to get a warning about toothbrushing through. I raised the tablet and they ran, screaming down the dark hall, the poor woman's face alight in my hand, a crumbly hole. What kind of father am I? I'm trying to be here in these long moments where nothing happens but window smudges soaked with sun. Then comes the wet oration, the curtain flung, Leo's towel tossed back like a royal mantle. And now I'm on the toilet, splitting Eileen's damp hair into rows, down which I work to keep my attention and not float away again to become like an alien, high above a foreign world, afraid to find the life I'm looking for. This next poem is Tisher Creek. It's hot, so I haul the kids and two of their friends, brothers, to our favorite swimming hole. There's an easy waterfall with a spot from my butt thousands of years of flow have worn smooth, where the cool water washes over my swollen knee and a sheer rock face like a slide down which all four kids plunge again and again. At first, they're flying. They're birds hunting fish, they're clouds crashing into their own reflections. But play changes quickly, and already the Titanic is sinking and fast. Look, one brother says, tentacles. A whirlpool, the other shouts, the Kraken. So out come the harpoons, which they pitch into the water, screaming and tearing at the air as they go down. Soon they start at each other, pantomiming blood squirting from their necks, hearts exploding like bombs. My daughter yells, help, help, and practices floating face down in the creek, in the shade and sun, where the boys above her laugh and die, laugh and die. This next poem is Air Hose. In the back of the body shop, beside the banging air compressor, past the 10-foot pig stove into which we rolled old railroad ties to burn overnight, my father is blowing himself clean again. It's how he closed the door every day on the day's work. He's on the other side now of the row of cars half finished and just begun, and he's tired, lifting the shiny thumb lever grip to his head, starting at the top where the compressed air like water from a garden hose rolls over his hair, and when he brings the bright nozzle to his chin and looks to the ceiling, his bangs fling up as though he's falling. He moves the hose side to side quickly over his torso, pasting the black shirt against his big, hard belly, then flagpoles his skinny legs to spend good long seconds on the brown, paint-stained boots. I've grieved his leaving too many times. I'm not going to do it again. I am my own father was a lie I'd learned to announce as he stood in the back, the last one there, blowing off the poison dust every weeknight before he left the body shop for Bridges Bar, then came home. This poem is Youth Soccer. Like if you could take the quick from Quicksilver, so it was just a clump of slowly moving metal, these kids move from one side of the pitch to the other, kicking at shins, so close they could hug. Leo has no idea what to do, but it's not his fault. This team's had more games than practices. Only the kids whose dads are out after work kicking around know what's going on. I'm no help. Skateboarder, fringe fucker, never played well with others, spent too much time staring at single things, waiting for my vision to blur. I take off my shoes and sink my bare feet into the cool, carefully manicured grass. Spread out, my wife yells, mark up, as the kids stand together, as though holding hands, waiting for a throw-in, a blank-faced, disinterested wall. Leo, alone, behind them, stares at the passing clouds. raises his arms above his head and rises again and again on his toes like he's about to lift away, and someone behind me screams as another boy breaks off, windmilling across the pitch, bouncing as though chasing an invisible rabbit. No guts, no glory. But isn't it no guts, no gory? I can never remember. What I do remember, at their age, I would wipe my hand across fake wood paneling, and the grain, like swiping your hand through smoke, coiled and slithered as though alive. This poem is Sea Glass, in which the receding sea makes Black Beach a mirror, and I'm given another sky, where the green glass like a lozenge floats, rubbed, rough, and soft, and I feel after a long month of worry the sea reminding the shard, you're sand. I roll the glass clean between my hands, dip it into a tidal pool, and hold it up for the sun's simple refrain to fill. You can't stay sharp. I'm the light. So the less and less I hold each morning, I work to revise. And revision is the place I plan to spend my days. There's no such thing as done. This next poem is United Martial Arts. And there's maybe only one thing you need to, ought to explain. A kia is the noise you'd make upon striking, right? So you go, ait. So they practice their kia to make that, to emphasize the strike. United Martial Arts. Stoic, sweet, but severe, the Greens, facing class, perform horse stance and double punch, and a number of other useless moves in a street fight. But the room full of kids is happy, striking at the air, watching themselves in the floor to ceiling mirror vanquish imagined enemies. I've been trying to teach kindness as a keel, and now knife strike is a daily move in our house. We swat at ghost assailants, chop open doors, say you'd better stop right there, our hands flat as plates. Quickness is key. To be quick as the closing door slices sound to silence. Every Wednesday, Leo and Eiley in bleached white geese bounce down the stairs, swinging above their heads, the wrinkled belts happily to the car. My favorite backseat faces. Their constant changing revises all expectations I have of beauty and permanence when the bright features don't blind me. It's a big class tonight. The Greens are busy. Leo's running blocking drills, Eileen's practicing her kia, and I, on my usual corner seat, half reading, half watching, learn now how important grasping block really is, as they both run over on break to demonstrate the move you'd use to grab the loose gi of the enemy you can't see, only feel as he rushes by. This poem is entitled Good Company. Good company. Walking through the snowy field. The day after I walked through the snowy field, I stepped next to my first set of prints, so anyone who cares to can see. I was never alone. Sorry, I'm reading from a manuscript here, so I haven't been checking in on the Zoom. Y'all cool? Everybody good? Oh, yes. Just a few more. This is The Cave. I mean, it's kind of a reverse of Plato's allegory, and Jay, the publisher, the director of Texas Review Press, has kindly allowed me to include Plato's allegory of the cave in the back of my forthcoming book. Because I think although we've read it, it's been a long time, right? Like, when's the last time you read Plato's allegory of the cave? So I have a friend who's translated from the Greek, the original, and there'll be a new translation in the back of the book. And this poem is thinking about the cave and the ways in which we acquire knowledge, and sometimes we wish we didn't have that knowledge and we could just go back into the shadows. The cave. Leo and Eiley hover above me, playing doctor. Apparently, I've been shot through the eyes by a man hunting deer. Your eyes are ruined, they say, and lay a pair of wool socks over my face, over the fact that I just got in late last night from a week's vacation, still a little drunk, skin pink with sun. In Plato's allegory, the ignorant ones kill the traveler for what he's seen. But here, on the kitchen floor, they feel for my pulse with a styrofoam stethoscope. Take a rusted tuning fork to my bad elbow. He's really sick, my daughter says, and leans down to blow her syrupy breath into me. Agreed, says my son, and taps a finger to my cheek. For a moment, they're silent as shadows like magnificent frigate birds soar across the socks on my face until, at last, around my wrists, they clamp the iron bonds and drag the chains jingling through the dirt. Like a pang of a sweet too sweet, the sound of their spike driven deep into stone. All right, just two more. This poem is preschool. Preschool. We're walking to the car, crunching snow across the yard, overburdened as usual with backpacks and books and lunches and bags, when my son says, "You would make a good grave." What? I say. My gun could do that. You don't have a gun, I remind him, as he climbs into his car seat and waits, smiling, for the familiar zip and click of the belt. Dad, he says, staring down the finger gun inches from my face, you're my best friend. Across the street, the birch look thinner and whiter in snow. I turn off the news, but too late. Too late. And drive slowly so we can watch two crows tuck and shoot through the tangled branches like the two he loves from his favorite storybook. Odin's black angels, Hugin and Munin, thought and memory, sent out across the world each morning with the hope that they come back. Today, luckily, we unbuckle his seatbelt, and my son kisses my hand before we cross the street. Today we hang his coat on the hook by his name, and he runs through the open door and into the bright room of children playing without saying goodbye. This is the last poem in the book. Eiley leads me into the woods. To a place across the street she wants to show me. To the hollow beneath the grove of squeaky willow. To a crick in the creek she's cleared of snow, to the spot she was standing when she first saw the deer melt on the hillside. 3 bright green portals to sunnier days, where a mama, I try to explain, and 2 fawns must have spent the snowy night, but before I can finish, she grabs my hand and squeezes. And for most of my life, I've wanted language always to accompany me. But for right now, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a terrific set of poems. It's a pleasure to have had you. I put information about your work that I could find into the chat. So anyone who wants to order books, please go and check out those links on the chat. And in a minute now, I'll start the open. We hardly have anybody. So if you want to add another short poem and make it 3, go ahead. But please, not too much over 5 minutes. So our first open mic reader is Brian Beatty.
Thank you, Robbi. I'll have 2 short poems from a manuscript in progress, tentatively titled Whatnot. The first I plan to share today was recently accepted for publication at Freshwater Review, a university journal where Mr. Ryan Vine is the faculty advisor, but I'm not going to insinuate any sort of inside baseball since Ryan and I do know each other.
The students are the student editors. They make all the decisions. I really have no say.
Well, it's always nice to know that folks are following on my work then, so great. This poem is Ars Poetica. Folk forms last. Pose and bluff ultimately fail us, as does heroism, unlike the land. Decoys on occasion take flight, much to everyone's shock. There we stand beside the lake, nothing worth saying, hands in pockets. And these poems from this new collection were written since I have moved back to Indiana where I grew up. And the highlight of my new digs here in Indiana is a pond out behind my place. That in that poem was a lake. And in this poem, I fess up and acknowledge it's just a pond. And in continuing the connective tissue between the poems in this collection, this poem is called Decoys. I sit out on the deck behind my house with a book, looking up sometimes to see all the ducks come and go from the pond at the bottom of the hill. The fascinating stories they could tell and hilarious jokes they might know intrigue me. It's true. But I've got doubts too. What if they're down there plotting, planning? I'm not falling for it. So those are my 2 poems. Thank you very much for inviting me to read, Robbi.
You're welcome. Hope you'll come back another time. And it's good to have you. Our next reader is Marc Petrie. Mark's a regular.
Hey Robbi, how you doing? Ryan, from your reading, I was wondering if you're familiar with this book. It's up by my writing table all the time. Refused to be Done by Matt Bell. So when you said how you refused to be done, the book clicked in my brain. Um, I changed my reading material based on what I heard today. I'm going to start with a short poem called Brays Creek, Yellowstone, June 10th, 2022, for Jim Harrison and Ted Kuzer. It starts with a little epigraph. Every time I go outside, the world is different. By the bank of the braided stream, I watch 2 mallards float around a bend with the swift current. In the water song, ancient, familiar voices rise. from a stream not yet encountered. And I'd like to read another poem from my latest collection from the Anthropocene, available at Cold River Press. This one is called Within a Cove. Translucent tiny waves lap on shore, step into clear water, feet sink in sand, disappear. Wade further out where purple patches of seagrass glow as if liquid fields of blue water were sown by a left-handed god of whimsy. Outer winds push in swells. White-capped waves sing their siren song. In swash, beckon, come past the shallows. Feet anger, mind lashed to the mast of reality. Eyes within the cove focus my stare on the work of a god of whimsy. Shivering, I retreat once more. The wind picks up as I move ashore. Translucent, tiny waves lap on shore. And I'd like to end with a poem from my second collection, which is called Poems of Nature and Despair. And this is one that, from the text I wrote in my journal the day when my son was born, December 29, 1997, and it's called A New Birth. The back of my eyes fill with all of life's glory. Out of the whale's mouth came Jonah, rejoice. How will you greet this new day? When the sun has run its course through all the signs of heaven, will you sleep with despair or delight? When blankets cover you, will you sleep the long night through, focused on the stars, the nebulae, the flat, dry world which stresses out before you? Blue lakes, bordered by pines, shimmer. Oceans stretch beyond the sunlight in your eyes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. David? You need to unmute. There you go.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Robbi. And I really enjoyed listening to the poems tonight. I did. A lot of food for thought. And I have two poems. The first one is called Accolades for the Missing. The mornings are unnaturally cool this season. Fishermen come mornings and evenings, blue lights on the river mark their boats and nets. But each year fish grow more scarce, skies more despondent. This morning recalls spring in California, the wait for flowers to blossom where seeds are planted, food rising from budding sheaths of earth, green in 1,000 hues, signaling heat and the rains to follow with love for living things. Lives have undoubtedly changed in time's odyssey, but just how is not certain for us to say. Mornings seem the same as they always have. Sun beckons after all. But we do not feel the same, so something changed. If these were ordinary times, we would go around the house turning off lights and wondering who was going to put out the stars. But these are not ordinary times. Dark lingers a bit longer each dawn, that we may know the progression of days is not guaranteed, nor is our presence in them. When I am gone, things will seem as before, except I won't be here. I tell this now, so that someone then might notice I miss it. And this one is called Uncommon Happiness. And it's in this month's virtual poetry page. What we have in common is our happiness and the crumb of time it lasts. No one is to blame. There is no one to blame for the unusual way desire overreaches what we have, that the robin chooses to bathe the pointless song in the sallow light of the neighbor's pear when it is I who have cared for the melody, lay down seeds in precise notation along the staff of a feeder. Let the robin keep its miserable tune. We all know what it is. We've tasted it. I curse you. No one will remember your damn song. Thank you.
Well, there's a spring poem for you. Not. Thank you so much. I'm going to end the reading unless there's someone else who's changed their mind and want to put themselves in the open. And I've got a couple of poems that are going to be in one art. This one's called Vesuvius at Home, and it's got an epigraph from Emily Dickinson. I judge from my geography volcanoes nearer here. I remember the clatter my mother's pressure cooker made on winter afternoons, how it spat steam, played a tune. Sometimes she sang along. Once the gauge shot off, embedding like a bullet in the ceiling. She just stood there, gazing as green goo geysered, slight smile on her lips. My mother loved her pot. I'd even say she was inspired by its potential and her own. She knew volcanoes can be still for years, though magma brews beneath. Maybe she sensed they were alike, she and this pot, that she could capture the force of the words that fueled her, the ones she muttered under her breath all day in 2 languages. She trained me to believe my words had heft, taught me to embrace the danger, learn the craft of channeling all the rich profusion that nascent power might allow. And I've got one more short one. It's called Ambivalence, and it's got an epigraph by Catherine Bowman's poem Duende. Memory is the past reversed. When I mouthed off, defiant in the face of my father's sudden rage, he used to say, "No one will ever love you but your parents." He said it ruefully, so I knew he'd heard it many times when he was young. He complained his mother held him back. She wouldn't let him work as the apprentice to a veterinarian or train to be a jockey because they wouldn't feed him kosher food. He didn't speak to her for years. But I had to wonder what he meant by love. If it was love he felt when he hit me with his belt, claiming all the while it hurt him more than me. Thank you. Great to see you, and I hope to see you back next month, and that you'll consider sending poems to Verse Virtual and listening to the readings on the archive. I put the link in the chat along with assorted GIFs and all kinds of stuff there.
Thanks
And
again, Robbi.
You're welcome. I'm
Robbi.
gonna get off the recording. And then if any